All right, guys. Good afternoon. I'm sorry about the first video that I didn't get posted. I recorded it, but it didn't record with sound. And so let's go ahead and get started. Lesson 11 tells us I can understand the absolute value of a number as its distance from zero on the number line. I can use absolute value to find the magnitude of a positive or negative quantity in a real world situation. So we're going to be talking about absolute value today. Okay, absolute value is how far a number is away from zero. Okay, and it's represented with these two lines. So if you see two lines and a number inside of it, that means absolute value. This is saying the absolute value of 7 is equal to what? Well, we need to count how many spaces -7 is away from 0. When you do that, you get 7, and that is the absolute value of -7, is 7. Remember, absolute value is always going to be positive, okay? Always. Now, the magnitude, okay, is just a fancy word for absolute value. So if any question shows you the word magnitude, it just wants you to find the absolute value of a number. Okay? Let's go ahead and move on. So, example 1 tells us the absolute value of 10 is written as those two lines with 10 in the middle. On the number line, count the number of units from 10 to 0. How many units is 10 from 0? Well, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 units between 10 and 0. So the absolute value of 10 equals 10. Now, what other number has an absolute value of 10? Well, -10, because -10 is also 10 units away from 0. Okay? And remember, the absolute value of a number is the distance between the number and the 0 on the number line. Okay, so always keep that in mind. Okay, now we have a chart. This is complete the following chart. Okay, it gives us a number. We want us to write its absolute value. Then we have a number line diagram that we're just going to draw an arc from that number to 0. And then we're going to write the number that has a different value, or a different number that has the same absolute value. So let's go through this. The absolute value of -6 is going to be 6. I go to -6, plot a point, and I'm going to draw an arc from -6 to 0. And a number that is different than -6 with the same absolute value is 6. Okay? Now we have 8. The absolute value of 8 is 8. We go to 8, and then I'm going to draw an arc from 8 to 0. And a number that has a different number that has the same absolute value as 8 is -8. Okay, number 3, -1. The absolute value of -1 is 1. I draw a little tiny arc from -1 to 0. And another number with the same absolute value is 1. Okay? So again, the same absolute value is always positive. Doesn't matter if the number you're finding the absolute value of is negative. Okay, example 2 says Mrs. Owens received a call from her bank because she had a checkbook balance of -$45. What was the magnitude of the amount drawn? Remember, magnitude is just wanting you to find the absolute value. So the absolute value of -45 is what? If you said 45, you are correct. Okay, the absolute value of -45 is 45. Okay, number 4 says Maria was sick with the flu, and her weight change as a result of it represented -4 pounds. How much weight did Maria lose? Well, we need to find the absolute value of -4. Okay, and the absolute value of -4 equals 4, so she lost 4 pounds. Okay, and remember, the magnitude of a measurement is the absolute value of its measure. Okay, magnitude equals absolute value. What I want you to do is to pause the video, okay, and try 5, 6, and 7 on your own. Okay, remember, you're going to do an equation that kind of looks like this. You're going to put the number between two lines and then tell me what the absolute value of that number is. So pause the video and then press play when you are done. Okay, you should have paused the video. And number 5 says, Jeffrey owes his friend $5. How much is Jeffrey's debt? Well, when you owe somebody, that is negative. So it's the absolute value of -5 equals 5. Okay. Number 6, the elevation of Niagara Falls, which is located between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, is 326 feet. How far is this above sea level? It is above sea level. Okay. So it is positive. So it's going to be the absolute value of 326 equals 326. Okay. And lastly, how far below 0 is -16. So all we're doing is the absolute value of -16, which equals 16. Okay, so hopefully you got those answers correct. Okay, so now lastly, let's do 11 and 12. It says, which of the following situations can be represented by the absolute value of 10? Check all that apply. So the first one says the temperature is 10 degrees below 0. Express this as an integer. That would be -10. Remember, the absolute value of 10 equals 10. -10 is not that. So the first one does not apply. So we are not going to check that. The next one says, determine the size of Harold's debt if he owes $10. Okay, so the absolute value of -10 equals 10, so that one does. Determine how far -10 is from 0 on a number line. It is 10 units away, so that one also applies. And 10 degrees is how many degrees above 0? That is 10, so that one also applies. So the only one that didn't apply was the first one. Now let's look at number 12. It says Julia used absolute value to find the distance between 0 and 6 on a number line. She then wrote a similar statement to represent the distance between 0 and -6. Below is her work. Is it correct? She wrote the absolute value of 6 equals 6 and the absolute value of -6 equals -6. Is she correct? She is not correct, okay, because the absolute value of -6 is not -6 because absolute value is always positive. The absolute value of -6 equals 6. And we can write no absolute value is positive, okay? And then the absolute value of -6 equals 6. All right, guys, you guys will have a problem set that looks like this. It says for each of the following two quantities in problems 1 through 4, which has a greater magnitude? Remember, magnitude equals absolute value. Okay? They give you two numbers. You have to determine which one has a greater absolute value. Okay? Get this turned in when you're done. Have a great day.